You do come from a film background, so you did have exposure to film at a young age.
Ironically, my first blockbuster was with a no name. 3 years after my debut.
So when you're doing a scene and you're fluent in Telugu and your co-star may not know Telugu.
Yeah. They're not saying anything. Sometimes it's just an AD there.
So when you were younger, what was the first thing you observed about a film set?
I do my work, I do my shot, and then I'm quiet.
So that one film that you think that you're the most proud that you've been a part of?
It's hard to say because each one has got a special place. Golconda High School came out in 2011. Then Malli Raava came out in 2017. So there was this 5-year period, 4 or 5 films, all were failures. I was still a novice. I didn't know what exactly I wanted to do. Wasting 2 years of my life doing engineering.
Those 2 years were also important because it figured out, you really learned what you didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Are you a loser? Are you a freak? Do you need a lover? Don't talk to me. Don't talk to me. Don't bother me.
Welcome to another episode of Real Struggles. We're talking real filmmakers and actors about their struggles working in the chaotic world of films. Today our guest is Telugu actor Sumanth.
Hey, nice to be here.
So Sumanth, let's start with, you do come from a film background, so you did have exposure to film at a young age.
Yeah.
So from when you were young, did you know that this was something you wanted to pursue?
Yeah, pretty much because I didn't know anything else. I'm from a film family and being brought up by my grandfather, Akkineni Nageswara Rao, I literally was with him 24/7, going to the film sets, coming back with him, hanging out there. So it was almost by osmosis. Sometimes I wish I had a choice, what I wanted to do, but my mental makeup was I don't know anything else but being a part of the film industry.
So when you were younger, what was the first thing you observed about a film set? Because it's also chaotic. There's so much going on. What did you understand was going on? From what you saw on set.
It's strange. Okay? I think the first thing that reminds me of a film set is probably the smell of
Sambrani.
my grandfather's malmal, which he uses for his makeup. It's so weird. That smell, that's my most distinctive memory of. They used to have that particular, they used to call it eau de cologne or something, and for my grandfather used to use it for his makeup. So there's a little white malmal cloth, so that kind of sticks in my memory.
So that connects back to...
That connects. So I'm on a film set. So I'm with film people. So it's that malmal.
It's a very unusual
thing. I know. But it just struck me when we were talking about it.
Yeah. No, I just saw when you the way you reacted also, just going back to that. But but how old were you when you went to a set for the first time and could understand that where you were? Not when you were an infant or...
I think probably about 5. I know it sounds weird. 4 or 5. I have memories of being on the film set and sitting on my grandfather's co-star's laps when they were sitting waiting for shots from a very young age. His makeup room. Yeah, probably about 4 or 5 for sure. Yeah, I know it sounds young and it sounds a little unbelievable, but it's actually the truth.
But did you understand what was going on? Was that because there's also set discipline that's involved, and as a kid, I'm sure you also are not going to understand why everyone's so quiet, why everyone's behaving a certain way on set. Did you understand how to behave on set?
I did, because back in the day, it still happens now, but there was the director was very staunchly used to say silence, and it was that strict clap. Now with digital cameras and everything, we don't exactly follow that regimen, or maybe we do. We had that hard wood clap, and then we had camera action, and then before that we had this very loud silence. So it was almost like being in school when the director or someone in the set said silence. So I remember we knew how to behave ourselves and not it wasn't a playground. It was, we kind of had our fun running around stuff, and then running around and playing and everything a little bit. But when the moment he said silence, we were okay, this is work. This is a workspace.
So what you saw on a film set, did you take that back into your home life, school life? Did you try doing school plays, or were you trying to make films? Did you try doing stuff like that on the side?
I did, but Our school, HPS, back then, that whole drama society and the dramatic, that it wasn't too, how do I put it, organized or full-fledged. It was very peripheral. It was very secondary to education, sports. So it was always academics and sports, and then all these painting classes, drama classes,
Art and craft.
We used to have like an annual Ravindra Bharati. We used to have like this show in Ravindra Bharati. So it was pretty legit. But I was always very shy and reticent.
Okay.
So I think I was always a little bit of an introvert, a little bit of... so I never really actively participated in, the school dramatics. I should have probably more. But my basic personality was very shy, introverted. So that kind of prevented me from that. But eventually, even though I knew I wanted to be an actor or in the film business at some point, my personality was very sort of anti that.
So how did you start breaking away from being an introvert and being shy? Like, how did you become comfortable with what you wanted to do?
I still haven't, honestly. I still haven't. I still struggle with it sometimes. But the minute the camera is on, you kind of it took me some time. Definitely, sometimes when I see my first film and second film, earlier films, or even later films, sometimes, you always feel that, you could have been looser, you could have done it better. That complete satisfaction is not there, but that shyness was always there. It was always there to a certain degree. And probably if I was a bit more extroverted, a bit more, say, flamboyant, it probably helps for an actor sometimes. It's a little more of a struggle for an introverted person.
So was that ever something that you thought would hold you back as an actor, being shy and an introvert?
It helps in certain characters.
Okay.
Definitely. It helped me in certain films like Godavari, and certain emotions actually, especially when scenes require you to underplay rather than to overplay. It helps in subtlety, it helps in those kind of things. It helped me in certain films for sure. In certain films you just kind of have to loosen up. And I have that in me, but it takes a little bit to, get out.
And since you had observed your granddad in many films on set, did he have a certain process that he would do before a scene or something like that to get ready for a character?
Damn good question. I think as far as I remember, he would just read. He would very avidly read the script paper and the dialogue. I never really noticed him. Or maybe I wasn't there at that particular point because I was there when he was shooting some of his most iconic scenes and movies. I don't remember that. Maybe he was just too good, and maybe he didn't have to rehearse. Because see, I saw him when in front of the camera when he was 53, 54. So I mean that was the age. So he was a seasoned professional. So I think learning lines and things like that, he was very spot on with all that stuff. Because he came from theatre and he never used to have dialogue. He came from sync sound. So
learning your lines was
learning your lines and not having anyone prompt you and all that was very integral for him. So but I'm curious to see what his process was.
Because I'm sure...
But I'm not sure.
Yeah, because the process back then, because of the lack of information, now now these books on acting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Back then, I'm just curious how people got into these things, or was it just something that just flowed for them or came completely naturally?
I think a lot of it was rehearsals. I think because he came from drama.
As in he did plays?
Yeah. He started off in the 1930s, late 1930s, doing stage plays. So it was very different, back then, obviously. You didn't have mics, it was being loud, it was being a little theatrical. And then he joined movies in in the early 40s. So his process was very different from the process that we have today.
And was he also, is there anything that you took from what he was like on set when you work? And any qualities that you learned from him that you apply in your work life?
I think we're very different.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was very social. It's probably one thing that everybody says I got his looks, but I didn't get that sociability. Like, he was very social. He was very cordial. Like, he's very easy to talk to. I'm more like, I do my work, I do my shot, and then, like, I'm quiet. I sit in a corner. I don't converse too much. Like, unless it's a professional thing that we need to address. Otherwise, I'm camera on, camera off. Once the camera is off, I'm like, in a corner, like, either reading a book or reading my lines or something like that. He was very different. He was very sociable. He used to have visitors come on set. See, I don't even like visitors coming on set. I don't even like family coming on set. And he liked, taking photographs with people and fans, and, like, who used to come and visit him on set. Like, he's a completely different, like, I'm a different animal altogether.
When were you 100% sure this is what you wanted to do? Because you also did, because you studied engineering, right, for your first few years.
Yeah. I started off, because that was the thing to do back then, like, late 80s, early 90s, like, when I finished up my high school, the thing to do, like, for Indian males, supposedly was either get into engineering or become a doctor or study BCom or, there was nothing else. Like, I mean, that was basically what my family did. My uncle Nag did engineering. My dad was an IIT engineer. And because my grandfather didn't have the privilege of education, he wanted us to finish at least our collegiate education. And so I was naive to the concept of film school until I went to the US. And then I was like, man, you can actually go to film school. Why did I even waste 2 years of my life, doing engineering? If I had to do it all over again, I'd go to film school right on the get-go, like, out of high school.
So did you transfer to first year or did you?
Second year.
Okay.
I did 2 years of engineering and then decided this wasn't my cup of tea. And then I transferred to Columbia College in Chicago, which was...
That's a really good film school.
Reasonable. I mean, it's not top notch, like, but it's okay because I wanted to be in the Midwest because all my friends and all were there, Midwest. My girlfriend was there, Midwest. So, like, I just wanted to be in the Midwest. So Chicago was, like, ideal, and that it was a reasonably good film school.
And what did you do in film school? Like, was it film theory or was it practical filmmaking?
A bit of both. I got my degree in film studies and I minored in film direction. But mostly theory. Like, I graduated in film theory. That was my major, like a BA in film theory.
Which is kind of like the English literature film.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that. But I had a good balance of, like, practical filmmaking. We had like, our film techniques 1 class and, like, editing classes, optical classes, like, back then digital effects weren't there. So we had a mix of everything.
So did you have the opportunity to act when you were there or work on films and make films?
Yeah. And in fact, that was the first time I actually did theater, like when I was in film school. And I should have probably done it way before. But acting for filmmakers was a class that, acting for directors, it was called. And I took that class. And, I had a couple of classes, actually, 2 semesters. That was when I actually, like, did theater plays, like, in film school. Like, kind of opened me up a little bit more. But yeah, that was my introduction to actual acting. I guess I would have been more well served if I got my degree in acting, like, because it would have been more comprehensive. I was more like, film theory and behind the camera.
But was that something you were more interested in at that point, being behind the camera?
No, I thought, like, taking, I just wanted to learn more about all the processes of filmmaking, all the crafts. I thought if I just get into acting, for some reason, I just thought, like, if I just get into acting, I'll just be only limited to that. So I wanted to get into more, like, film theory, learn about, like, different kinds of filmmaking and direction. Because I minored in direction, then you automatically learn about the different crafts more. But I probably won't do it too different if I had to do it all over again. But I would have started off early, like instead of wasting wasting 2 years of my life like doing engineering.
But then those 2 years were also important because it figured out you learned what you didn't want to do.
Yeah. No, and thankfully in the US, you can transfer your classes.
But how did you hear about this college?
I didn't waste my time. How did I think was the internet there then? I'm trying to remember. This was in 94. Because 94, I was done with 2 years of engineering, and then I was just doing my research. I got into USC, the film school at USC. But unfortunately, that's
Your girlfriend was in the Midwest.
Okay, that was one of the reasons. Definitely that was one of the reasons. But they also didn't take a lot of my credits, a lot of my classes from Michigan.
Okay.
USC. So USC, I would have actually had to spend 2 more years at USC if I decided to go to USC.
Okay.
See, if I decided to stay back in the US, I would have gone to USC. I knew I was coming back to India, and I didn't want to waste 2 more years. So I decided Chicago was like, my, it was okay for me. And now I did not know back then it was relatively easy to get into Columbia College Chicago, but you just told me that it's a very tough school now.
Yeah, it's a very tough school. It's the top 10 film schools in America to go to.
So I graduated from a damn good college. Happy to hear that.
Yeah, and I was also telling you they have one of the biggest green screens in the US.
Wow.
Which they also give out to like Hollywood films to shoot at.
That's I'm pleasantly surprised. I keep getting emails, like, the alumni emails and stuff to be a part of like more of the events and everything. I don't even know if they know what I do like back home.
But you must have been the only Indian in there.
I was.
Over there, right?
At that point, yeah. Because as you know, most of the Indian kids who go there, they either go into like, computer science or medicine or now you're seeing more faces in art.
Yeah.
In cinema and television and everything. But back then it was a rarity. Like, for an Indian kid, especially like a ABCD, I was like, not ABCD, I'm sorry, I was FOB, fresh off the boat. Fresh off the boat Indian, like, to study cinema. Back then, I mean, this was 93, 94.
But was it a decision that was supported by your family, or did they think you had to finish your engineering?
Yeah. No. In fact, I still remember the first person I told was my grandfather, because I was driving him. He had come for a visit, and I was driving him from Chicago to Michigan. And I told him, like, Tata, I'm tired of doing engineering. Not going to use it anymore. I'm going to transfer to film school. So he said, fine. Then he was like, and I told my father, I told my uncles, they were all cool with it. And because they knew I wanted to be in films eventually. So worked out for me.
And after you finished your film school, where you came straight back, and what was the plan then?
The plan was to get into films. What was my first film going to be? How was I? My uncle Nag was like very instrumental in getting me to do that. I
mean, you got to work with Ram Gopal Verma.
Yeah, when he was like, when he was the thing or a thing.
This is post Shiva, right? Shiva was 91.
Yeah, this was exactly post Rangila. It was during Satya. When he made Satya, that my debut Telugu film Prema Katha released. So it was immediately around, he was shooting Satya and he was shooting Prema Katha.
Okay.
My debut Telugu film. He had come back to Telugu after a hiatus because he was quite entrenched in Bollywood at that time. And then it just happened randomly. We were just sitting in my Uncle Nag's house by my Uncle Nag's pool. Ramo was there, and we were just having coffee or tea together, and I think I just went inside, to get some coffee or tea, and then by the time I came out to sit with both of them, my Uncle Nag told me that, hey, Ramu said that he's going to do your debut film. It just happened like that. I didn't even ask him and stuff. And then I kind of traveled with him while he was shooting Satya, Manoj Bajpayee, and all that. And then Manoj Bajpayee did the antagonist. role in my film. Oh yeah, I still think, wow, I'm like, yeah. And that's something. And that's how it happened.
But were there other films that you had looked at or other directors and writers you'd spoken to before
No,
that
I had left everything to my... I was still a novice. I didn't know like what exactly I wanted to do, or whether I wanted to do it in a regular routine way, like in a commercial kind of film, masala kind of film, song dance kind of film, or do it like slightly hatke, which is what I did, because Prema Katha was slightly hatke. Not slightly, quite hatke. Because it was a very de-glamorized role. I was playing this village boy in this very sort of rural setting and everything. So which was not exactly the typical, like, launch pad or whatever you call it. But I was happy. I was happy doing that because I had a rapport with Ramu. Because he had worked as an AD. I've known him since he worked as an AD for my dad and my uncle, like, even before Shiva.
Okay.
So had that personal relationship with him. So it worked out.
I briefly had worked with him in Bombay for 2 months.
Okay. Must be like recently? No.
2018. 2018, yeah.
Okay.
He was making a web series called Guns and Thighs at the time.
Okay. I got him well before the phase. Before that phase.
Yeah.
Before the Thai phase.
Yeah. So I briefly worked with that production for 2 months.
Yeah. Okay.
So what kind of director is he? Like in terms of like whether it was also your first film, and does he like, did he have to like break things down to you? How did scene blocking happen back then for you? How did understanding the scenes happen? Because also you don't come from that background you don't come from a rural background, so even getting into the language space must have been a challenge.
It was okay. I mean, if I look back on it, like, I would have done a few, I was all right. Like, I wasn't really good, but I got good reviews. The film got good reviews. It did like just about average business commercially, but it got like 5 state awards. Like, it was a very well received film. It kind of bridged like a little bit of the commercial. It had like the commercial elements, the masala elements a little bit, but it had the art house elements also, which is what I like. It had its flaws, so it wasn't like commercially successful. It was like an average running film commercially, but it kind of like, okay, this guy's good, this guy can act, like, chalta, like, more than chalta, like, that happened for sure. And
but how does he work on set? Like, what's that like?
It's very easygoing, actually. Like, I mean, at least this was in 1999. Like, and he was fresh off of Satya. And that definitely has to be in his 5, like, if it was 5, his top 2 or 3 films for me, for me at least.
I think it's the top
Probably.
few films of India as well. Like,
yeah. So he was like, but he was reconnecting with Telugu again after a long time, because it moved into Bollywood, Mumbai rather. It was okay. Like, I wouldn't say that, like, it had its like flaws for sure. He knows it and I know it now. Like, most of the flaws were in the scripting stage itself. Like, because mainly, like, a lot of the people didn't like us dying in the end. Spoiler alert. Like, I die and she dies. Like, I think we were a little too enamored with Titanic at that point. Titanic came out in 97. So we saw Titanic, and the tragic climax, was the thing. But, like, we forgot that there was a kind of a justification in Leo's death, which, like, wasn't really there in my death in the film. I think that was one of the reasons for its failure. People were just shocked as to why I died in the end. Yeah, that's that.
So after that, was it was your second film? So you probably had, because it was well received critically also. So it was probably a good phase for the films you were getting.
Yeah, I got good offers. Like, like I got offered, like, Karunakaran was my second director. He was just off of Toli Prema with Pawan Kalyan, which was a massive hit. So he was like a director in demand at that point, and he wanted to do a second film with me. And so that happened. And then my third film also was with Raghavendra Rao Garu, and alongside my grandfather.
Oh,
But
so you acted with your granddad?
Yeah, that was my third film. I acted with my grandfather. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good film.
Okay.
So my second and third film also, even though I worked with names, it was a perfect example of we had the names, but like the script, the script wasn't right. There were mistakes in writing, mistakes in scripting. So the second and third film, like, also suffered from that. So I didn't have like a commercial, like, hit for a while. Like, so even though, like, I was working with like
the most important people.
The names, I didn't have the right script. So none of those films like really worked, my initial films.
So when these scripts were brought to you, these films were brought to you, these problems weren't, did you not see these problems at that time, or did it work? Like,
I did, but I was kind of scared to voice them.
Okay.
And, I was like, okay, I'm like this bacha over here, like, my uncle's okayed this and Ram Gopal Varma okayed this. So I had a problem with the death of in my first film. Like, I was like, but why does he die? Like, there's no justification for his death. I didn't mind dying, but like, I wanted to die like, an Amitabh in Diwar or like a Leo in like Titanic or something like that, with a reason. I wanted the death. So I knew there were certain faults, like, but when they were being okayed by these names, I was too hesitant to voice my opinion strongly because I was still it was my first film, second film. I was just acting and I was just like, doing.
And also you probably feel like everyone else has the experience.
Right.
Which
So when they didn't have a problem with the script, I didn't want to go say, no, I have a problem with the script. Or so I felt like hesitant to do that.
And
And that kind of, I guess it happens to most people. Not most people, but it happens to people.
It's a learning experience, because you probably, after that, you probably figured out what you want to do better, how to pick things better and stuff like that, right?
You just go with your gut sometimes. Most of the time, you just go with your gut. Sometimes, like, you just pick out the wrong projects sometimes, which I did later on also. Like, projects that I shouldn't have been a part of. I just did it because, like, I just didn't want to be at home and, like, just not do anything. So I would pick out, like, films that I didn't particularly love, the scripts, but I just wanted to be working continuously. So I made that mistake too, like, at times. But the initial films, like I said, even though I'd worked with names and even though I knew there were certain problems in the scripting, I didn't really voice it because I thought like I was new and it's not my place.
It probably didn't feel great, like if those two films didn't work out after the first one. How did you kind of like keep yourself going through that though?
No, I was disappointed. Of course, I was like quite disappointed that they didn't like really work because I started off in 99, 2000, and then I had my first hit in 2003, late 2003.
Which was?
Which was Sathyam.
Okay.
And ironically, that was a film that was made with a no-name director. It had no names involved. Like the director was a no-name. He was just this new guy, like, done some TV. So we just picked him out and kind of developed the script ourselves. He just came with like this little line and then we kind of like elaborated on that. And like, ironically, my first blockbuster was with a no-name. In 2000, 3 years after my debut. Almost, 3.5, 4 years after my debut. The only name, even my co-star at that point, Genelia also, she was a no-name. Everybody were no-names. And that was my first blockbuster, Sathyam.
So, but is there a reason that you decided to take the risk of working with someone who didn't have an established name, or?
No, but again, this one, my uncle Nag, he was the name. Like, he was producing the film.
Okay.
He was producing the film. So, like, some of the major decisions, like the scripting decisions, again, he had a hand in it. I had a hand in the scripting, some of it too. Somehow we kind of got together and we just made a blockbuster out of that. Like it was a surprise blockbuster. Like almost 4 years into my career. So that was that.
And so those 4 years when before Satyam came along, was it? Did you ever think that you wanted to stop acting, or you thought you knew how you had to persevere through this?
I was getting offers. I was getting work. But the struggle was, at that point, when you have the first film was critically successful. My first 2 films were critically successful, but commercially unsuccessful.
That's success by itself, right? In a way.
Not necessary. If you have both, I mean, you get the cream of the projects. You get your offers, you get the top shelf offers. That wasn't happening, but I was still getting work. I was, the struggle was that I wasn't getting great work. So I just kind of decided okay, this is one last ditch effort, make, not last ditch, but one more time, put in everything together and and that's how Satyam happened. Yeah, those three years were a struggle. Definitely they were a struggle before getting it. There was disappointment. It was I think I was 24, 25, 26. I think I had my first hit when I was 27. Yeah, that's about right.
But how is thing when you're that young, especially in your early 20s, coping with disappointment also is a very challenging thing, because you, especially in films where your failure and success is out for the world to judge.
Right.
It's not like you're failing at work,
right.
like not submitting a balance sheet on time or whatever.
Right.
Because how does someone cope with that though?
I don't know how I dealt with it exactly, but one thing I know is because I had to deal with it. I was always very even-keeled about it. And I just became very even-keeled about both success and failure. And by nature, my personality itself is, I'm a little bit of, how do I put it? I'm a little bit of a Spock. I'm not too emotional.
Okay.
So everything is kind of even-keeled. So if I get happy... Stoic. If I get happy, I get a little happy. If I get sad, I get a little sad. I am more like that now. But even back then, I was like that. I never... There was this certain attachment-detachment kind of principle which I followed, which kind of helped me deal with it.
What do you mean by attachment-detachment?
It's part of our philosophy, actually. Buddhism and even Hinduism, lots of... You go to any ashram, they teach you be attached, but be detached also at the same time. I mean, that's the key to happiness. That's a very sort of integral principle of Buddhism, spirituality. A lot of spiritual gurus and all that teach that. I just inherently had it in me to a certain degree. Don't get carried away by success and don't get too disappointed with failure. So, just be a little happy and be a little sad and then move on. So I always try to practice that. I do that a lot more now, but even back then I had that.
But was this something that came to you on your own, or because also you did have people in your family who had already had their own ups and downs?
Yeah.
Did they also help and contribute to helping you get through this point?
I think I kind of did it myself somehow. Somehow I just kind of figured out this is the way I got to deal with it. There's no point of and maybe my personality also helped me, because sometimes if you're a kind of an emotional person, that can be disappointing, when you have disappointments. That can just take you down. So I was, maybe me being a relatively less emotional person sort of helped me being even-keeled about the whole thing.
So now after Satyam, then did the offers get a little better for you? I mean, you said the offers never really stopped. You kept getting offers, but were you getting bigger films after that?
Yeah. Immediately after Satyam became a hit, I got offered Gowri, which was a remake of a Vijay and Jyotika film in Tamil called Thirumalai, which was a hit in Tamil. We sort of adapted it, and it was from a big production house, Sravanti Ravikishore, Ram's uncle, and that was a hit too. And that was that was a typical masala film, which was totally out of the box for me up to that point, action and had these sort of mass dialogues. And
was that your first
and
that kind of film?
Cigarette, tricks with the cigarette and lighting cigarette, a little bit of all that. That was all new to me, but that became a big hit. So I had consecutive hits back to back in 2003, 2004. after that, like, I thought that maybe I should continue in this vein, like this commercial masala vein, after Gowri became successful too. But then my subsequent 2 films after that, in the regular sort of pattern, the commercial pattern, weren't successful. Like, I did a film called Dana 51, which was a flop. And then I did a film called Mahanandi with alongside Anushka Shetty. That was an average running film. And then I got offered Godavari in 2005 and released in 2006. So that was a gear shift for me, because I was doing like regular commercial films. Like I tasted success with a regular commercial film, kind of. I mean, you won't say it had like any offbeat nature in it. And Gowri also was an action commercial film, masala film. And then I thought I would just go off into that. But the subsequent 2 sort of regular films, quote unquote regular films, didn't work. So then I got offered Shekhar. Shekhar Kamala offered me Godavari, which was...
And he was also relatively new at the time, right?
Yeah, he was just off of Anand.
Okay.
At that.
So his third film.
This was his third film. Anand was his first commercial success. And then Godavari was offered to me, and probably is, even till today, a lot of people say it's like, my signature film. And that kind of was a nice gear shift, and really enjoyed the process, and it was completely different for me. Like, working with Shekhar, it was completely different from the films that I had done up to that point.
What was different about his direction, the way he directed the film compared to the other people you'd worked with?
There was a real sense of naturalism. Like, there was a simplicity in the dialogue, and there was a humor in the dialogue. It was very natural. I think more than anything, that was the unique thing about him. I still believe that is probably his best film that he's done even till today, after so many years, even for Shekhar. Not because I'm a part of it, but I've seen all his films, liked many, but I still feel that Godavari is his strongest film, even till now. That kind of changed my career, in a different way. Like, I had success before, but I had success in a different way with this one. Yeah.
So, what's that one film that you think that you're the most proud that you've been a part of?
That's a tough one. I've had maybe in 20 years, I've probably had 6 successful films where I played the lead role. It's hard to say because each one has got a special place, because Sathyam is, my first breakthrough film. Gowri was my masala film. Godavari was my revelation film.
Golconda High School also.
Golconda High School was it was probably the first sports drama in Telugu. Literally in the Telugu film industry, it was probably the first sports film. So that was special in its own way. But I think the film that people that is, if I look back on things, Godavari is the film that has aged the best.
Okay.
So I feel that is probably my signature film. It's hard for me to say, but if I had to aggregate everything, I would probably say Godavari.
When Godavari came to you, did you see the potential in the film, or
no?
What was it about the film that made you want to do it?
I didn't think it would be because Anand had come, and Shekhar was a name, but Godavari kind of took it to a different level because it was made on a much wider platform, with a bigger budget, and it was a much more beautiful film because the entire film was shot on the river banks and on a houseboat. It was very new for Telugu. Even till today, you don't see films like that. Come out. But the entire film is shot on a boat, on a ship. The entire story, most of it rather.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be special because you had strange things, unique things in the film. You had so many quirky characters. You had a talking dog. You had the film being shot on a river. So many different things. So I knew it was good, but I didn't think it would become a phenomenon.
Was there any film that you had read that you said, okay, I think this is going to be a great film, and it didn't turn out the way you expected?
Yeah. Classmates. Classmates was a film, same producer. It was directed by Manmadaru's director.
Okay.
Vijay Bhaskar Garu. It was a remake of a huge Malayalam hit called Classmates. Again, Prithviraj acted in it. He starred in that film. Like literally, it was a carbon print of the Malayalam one. And for some reason, it just didn't work here.
Is it because of the cultural differences, do you think?
Probably. I'm not sure. It was kind of centered around like, student politics and unions in colleges. Not unions, like, whatever.
College elections.
College elections and all that. But something didn't click. It was an all-time hit in Malayalam at that point in time. But for some reason, it didn't work here. It happens sometimes. Yeah.
So it's something that you can't really, like, even because a lot of people who don't work in films have the understanding that why has this person picked this film, and they don't really understand the thought process that goes behind it. Because some people pick things also because, like you said, you were sick of sitting at home. You wanted to do some work.
Yeah.
So some people pick it for that reason. Some people do it because they need to work.
Yeah.
Some people find it interesting and they do it.
Right. And Classmates was, if I had to do it all over again, I would still pick Classmates because if a film was an all-time hit in Malayalam, it's a proven subject.
Yeah.
Like, maybe now I won't pick it because of OTTs, like a lot of Telugu audience would have seen the Malayalam film and all that. But back in the day, like, if that offer came to me again, I would still do the same because it was theoretically
on paper
the right decision. Solid production house. Remake of a super duper hit Malayalam film, directed by a super director.
Yeah, and this is post Manmaduru.
3 films post Manmaduru.
Okay, so it already.
Vijay Bhaskar Garu had like blockbusters with Uncle Nag, like Venki, and he was a big name director, and like he had like one battery of hits behind him. So theoretically, it was can't go wrong. But it just didn't work out.
And did you ever feel like during the filming process of one of the films that didn't run or a film that ran really well that, okay, this is going to be a really good film or this is going to not be what I expected it to be? Do you get that feeling while the film is being made or does it?
Yeah, sometimes you know that this is a shit film, man. Like, halfway through it, like, you just kind of know, oh, what the hell, man, why did I be a part of this one?
What are the signs that tell you that things are going to go wrong?
See, I made mistakes like, just picking out certain films, like, I didn't even have like, I picked out certain films just with the storyline and not the full script. Like I made that mistake. And then I picked out some wrong scripts like later on, like, in the early 2010s, like, sometimes you never know. Honestly, like, when I was doing in I think 2016 or something, I did the Telugu remake of Vicky Donor. And I love Vicky Donor.
Yeah.
Like, but somehow it didn't translate over here. I think, see, that I thought would be okay when it came here, but it didn't work here. But then some other films, like, which I did before that, like, you kind of know that, like, halfway through, man, this is going to be a disaster. Happens. And then you just kind of like, okay, no, you just kind of just go.
It's a job at the end of the day.
It's a job. Yeah.
You have to go to the office and just...
Yeah, around the 50% mark of the film, kind of know, like, this is not working. Something, you just get that, like, gut feel.
Yeah. So then, like, after you had a string of hits and, like, then things started slowing down a little until Malli Raava?
Malli Raava.
Yeah.
Malli Raava. Yeah, so basically I had a lull between Golconda High School and Malli Raava. Golconda High School came out in 2011. And then Malli Raava came out in 2017. So there was this 5-year period where, like, I had 4 or 5 films, all were failures. Like, and then Malli Raava came, was directed by Gautam Tinnuri. He did, subsequently he did Jersey with Nani, and then he did the Jersey with Shahid, the same director. His debut film was with me, Malli Raava. Yeah, I didn't think that Malli Raava would be, like, just a surprised hit. Because I was going through a lean patch at that point and I loved the script and I just did it. But, like, I did not know, like, that this would be a hit.
So when you're doing the scene and, I mean, you're fluent in Telugu and your co-star may not know Telugu.
Yeah.
What are they saying on screen in, like, your wide shots for you to react to? Are they saying
Sometimes they're not saying anything. Sometimes it's just an AD there.
No, but lips, they're moving their lips, no?
They're just moving their lips. Sometimes.
Oh, words don't come out?
No, sometimes... See, there have been times where, like, I helped my co-star out by having a stick-on thing like on my chest, while I'm in suggestion. So she can take a cue or something, like she or he can take a cue. Sometimes you do that. Like I remember when I was shooting for a Tamil film, like I did a small cameo in Dhanush's film, and I didn't know Tamil. So I had to take cue cards. I had to take cue cards, but I was like lip syncing in Kannada. So I mean in Tamil.
So were you saying the lines in Tamil?
I was saying the lines in Tamil.
Okay.
Yeah, they may not have been perfect, but in that scenario, dubbing helped me.
Did you dub your own part?
I did, but like, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't good enough, so the director vetoed it. But I spent like, 2 solid days trying to dub for myself in Tamil. But it had that little bit of accent and slang, so like, it wasn't in the final cut.
Because I've also heard like some people just saying, just mouthing words, like random words.
Yeah, they do that. I don't like that.
Does that distract you when you're acting though? Because you have to also be in the moment, right? With your character.
See, maybe it affects like a percentile of the small percentage of the act, the whole experience and your delivery and everything. But maybe the audiences, can't catch that difference. Maybe you can. Obviously, it'll be better for an actor to bounce off or riff off, like, someone who knows your language and like, someone that's ad-lib and spontaneity and all that. But sometimes we have to make do with what we have.
And also, of late, there's been a sudden growth of like Telugu-speaking actors who've like normally the villains or like the actresses have always been from other parts of the country.
Right.
But now there's been a sudden growth of like
character actors also, like supporting cast also.
Supporting cast coming from the different parts of the country. But a lot of and maybe because Telugu families are probably a little more traditional and they don't want their daughters to go out and act. I don't know. But like there are a lot of like in the OTT space, there's so many new actors who.
But that doesn't make any sense because there's so many like Malayalam heroines coming and Tamilian heroines coming and Kannada heroines coming.
Yeah, but why aren't there as many Telugu heroines?
I don't know. That should change.
Yeah. And also there are acting schools and stuff over here that have now, like, I mean, Annapurna has an acting course.
Yeah, we have a film school. Yeah, we have a full-fledged film school. So hopefully there'll be more actors from the Telugu language.
I mean, I think it's important that there has to be that kind of representation because you're making...
They should. 100% they should. There was before. In fact, the Telugu actors...
were doing films in the north.
Yeah, Sridevi and Jayaprada and all went up and, they went up north and they're very successful.
Like even before them, Vaijayanti Mala.
Yeah, Vaijayanti Mala. I mean, she retired in her peak, but she was like super duper successful.
Yeah.
She was from the south and she went up north and ruled the north.
Devika Rani.
Yeah. So true.
So many of them.
Yeah.
I think there's just been that lull in these few years, but I'm glad it's actually like improving now.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah.
So is there any advice you'd have to give to aspiring actors and filmmakers? What do you think they should do to start off?
I would definitely suggest them to, be trained. Like it definitely helps, like, to be trained. Especially like, if you're a shy, reticent person like me, like, training always helps. And these days, like, with social media and all, people are a lot more savvy in front of the camera. But I would definitely tell them to be trained and be ready. Like, there's a preparation thing, especially like for if you want to be in Indian films, it's good to like, apart from just acting, like, good to know your dancing, good to know, like, get your action sequences right, like, it's good to be well-rounded. It's good to just get your training right. And then after that, like, your connections, your luck, the hard work and dedication, all this, the stars have to align. Yeah. But the best thing you can do is just like, get trained and be prepared.
How do actors start getting roles? Because we don't have a casting director system in place fully as yet.
Yeah.
It's coming in, but how do people like who are coming from like a Vizag or like a Vijayawada, like who've just moved to Hyderabad, like figure out who to approach, who to talk to?
See, there are platforms where they can break through. Like, they can become Instagram stars. They can become television stars on like these singing shows, on these stage shows that are there on, you have platforms. if you're that good, like I don't think anything can stop you. You will be recognized, especially with social media. Like you can become a YouTube phenomenon and become an actor. A lot of it has happened. It has happened.
Yeah.
Both in Hollywood, it's happened in Bombay. It'll happen. Like you have that tool which wasn't there earlier. And especially if you're a person who can be out there, like a little bit out there. I can never be that. Like, I'm not even social media savvy. I don't like to be on social media. Like, I use social media so sparingly, like just as a...
It's your work. It's not...
Yeah, I just use it predominantly to promote during my film promotions. Otherwise, I don't put anything on there. Like, I'm sort of like, for myself, I'm sort of like zero with social media. Yeah.
That's also super healthy though.
It can be mentally healthy, but sometimes it can be professionally a minus.
Yeah.
Sometimes, especially for an actor who's probably coming up or something like that, it's good to have a social media presence.
It's like out of sight, out of mind for other people, I guess.
Yeah, that's there. And like, sometimes it helps also, like just the other day to select a co-star. Like, you don't need them to come and do like a screen test and like to do a video test and all that when everything is there on Instagram. Like, when how they are, when they're like, more or less, how they are when they're facing the camera. So like, it's a tool.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So it can be an excellent professional tool. So yeah, many ways. But I think first and foremost is for any actors, you can just get your preparation right and get your training right.
So, I think we're done. Any parting words of wisdom?
I'm still yet to get wise. Wisdom is yet to come to me. So, yeah.
So, we'll get back to you guys on that. So, like, share, subscribe, and catch you again next week.